Hello, hello, and welcome back to the Burnt Pancakes podcast. I am your host, Katie Fensky, and like every week, I am here to remind you that everyone burns their first pancake. I am really, really excited to bring you this conversation today. I left this last interview feeling so validated, feeling so heard and seen, and I just really think you're going to love this. So I sat down with Elizabeth Pearson-Garr. She is a former journalist, worked in film, and left that for 15 years, the workforce, to be a stay-at-home mom. And so we opened up a lot about what was it like? What is it like being a stay-at-home mom? What are some feelings that come up? So thoughts that come up. Gosh, how is it being home with kids all day? So a lot of things that I'm like going through right now in this transition from teaching for 17 years to now I'm home with my kids and I'm not making the money that I used to. So she opens up about all of this. And also what it's like. She has started her own business and gotten into podcasting and working again, what that was like for her in midlife and what it's like for her family to transition to moms working again. I think just the topic of working moms, stay at home moms, there's just not a lot of talk about the reality of it. Both are hard, both have wonderful benefits, but this conversation just really opened up a lot of great insights. So I think you guys are going to adore this conversation. So please enjoy my conversation with Elizabeth Pearson-Garr. Elizabeth, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you so much. I'm so happy to be here.
I'm excited to pick your brain all about this topic. Um,
Happy to talk about all of it.
why don't you start by introducing yourself? Tell us a little bit about how many kids you have, how old they are.
Okay. Yeah, well, I'm Elizabeth Pearson-Garr, and I'm married. I've been married almost 20 years, and I've got two kids. Catherine is 17 and Lucy is 15. So they are now senior and sophomore in high school, which
Oh,
is crazy. When people say it goes fast, it goes fast.
that's a big one. I know. I think on one of the things you wrote to me about, it said something about as your kids get older, you can see the finish line. And
Yeah.
you're kind of there now where I'm like, oh my God, I have such a long ways to go. You're like, it's here.
It's kind of breaking my heart,
Oh,
really, to just think about all of these things that have passed. Like, we recently started the first last things. Like, it was
oh,
the last, or I guess it was the last first,
yeah.
the last
Last
first
first
day of
day of
school,
school.
the last, her last, AAU season of basketball, her last, and it's just crazy. I used to look at the last back to school night for her,
Hmm.
all of these things. I'd see other parents do it and think, oh, I wonder how that feels. It's like, here we
Ugh,
are.
it's hard. And I'm not
Yeah.
one that's good at change. Like change is hard for
Hmm.
me. So I think that will be hard. Does she have plans for what she wants to do after high school?
She does. Yeah. She's a basketball player, so she's going to play basketball in college. So she sort of started the whole college thing early with recruiting and everything. So yeah, she's going to go to college and continue playing basketball, and it's exciting and uh, crazy to think of her at the
Yeah.
next
Oh
level
my gosh, good
already, but
for
she's
her
ready.
though. That's impressive. Will
Yeah.
she be nearby or far away when she goes?
Probably far away. She has options on both coasts, but she's probably going to go to the opposite coast.
Oh no.
Yeah.
Vacations, right? Vacation. Oh my God.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're right. I don't know how I'm gonna feel. Right now, I'm just like, give me space. But then when you have
Yeah.
space, are you like, I want them back?
I know, I remember that. I remember when they were little and, like, grabbing my leg when you're trying to cook
Mhm.
and thinking, "Can someone just not touch me right
Yes.
now?"
Yes.
And now I feel like, where are they?
Like, come
Will they ever
snuggle
come home? Will
me.
someone I mean, my girls talk a lot. They're not those kind of teenagers who just grunt and go to their room. I mean, they are very communicative, but still they're so busy and there's just not as it's such a different phase of life.
Yeah.
And so you just think about all the changes that you've gone through. And I remember a mom with older kids once telling me, like, sometimes I'd like to go just for a day back to a different stage. I'd like a day of my newborn, a
Yes.
day of my 5-year-old, and not have to live in that stage all the time. And
Yes.
Wouldn't that would be magical to have that time machine.
I have felt that way too, especially about like the baby stages. I just want to hold you again, but
Yeah.
not have to like hold you all day.
And be
Yeah.
exhausted all night.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. I feel this is gonna be great. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about stay-at-home mom, working mom. What did you do
Yeah.
before you had kids?
Well, in a nutshell, I guess you could say I was a journalist, but I'm somebody that has always followed my passions, and I didn't have a like really set career path. So I went to cooking school right out of college because I wanted to be a food writer, and so I was a food journalist for a while. Then I was one of the first employees of the TV Food Network, which is now just
Oh,
called Food Network. And then I got into television and I was a TV news anchor and reporter. And then I was a producer and writer for TV, like PBS and other PE News Entertainment. And then I got into documentary film. So I kind of
wow.
have always been into like storytelling and writing and journalism. And then, I met my husband, and I always knew about myself that I wanted to be a mom. That is like the
Mhm.
one constant. Well, I always loved to write. I mean, there's certain other things too, but I
Yeah,
always wanted to be a
that
mom.
was part of my path.
Yeah, and I thought, well, even if I like never meet someone, I'm somehow going to be a mom, even if I stay single my whole life. And I remember I told that to my husband like on our third date. He was like, "Whoa,
Well, I guess you
okay,
don't need me.
yeah." um, but I had just recently gotten my master's degree in documentary film when we had met, and we had a pretty quick, I mean, we only dated for like a little over a year before we got engaged. And it was one of these things, if you're going to be a documentary filmmaker, they call it, if you're going to make a film, it's kind of like they say it's your baby. It's very hard
Mhm.
to make a movie. And I
Yeah.
remember thinking like, I'd really rather have my own baby than a film baby. And so
Mhm.
I I got pregnant about 4 months after we got married, and it was kind of clear, I mean, my husband and I had talked about it, like, dif "Do I wanna stay home?" He said, "It's, totally up to you." I mean, there was no, of course, him forcing me to do it, but
Yeah.
I had thought that was something I wanted, and just how my career was at the time, like, I didn't have a job that I could easily just sort of take maternity leave. It was you're a freelancer if you're working in
Right.
film.
It's crazy
So,
hours, right? Your hours are
yeah,
really
and
long.
you're sort of you're in or you're out, sort of.
Mhm.
And I should say with the caveat of I had the privilege of making that choice. I mean, I realized that we were in that spot that not everybody can make that choice of can
Mhm.
I be a stay-at-home mom or not? Like some people, financially you need to
Right.
find a job, right? So I just kind of want to put that out there. Like I own we were I was able to do that, and I everything that I'm going to say from here on, like it's not like I'm preaching that everyone needs to do what I did. I
Yes.
think it's just a
Yes.
very individual choice, and I was given that option. Um, and I just kind of knew it in my gut, like this feels right for me right now. And I know friends who just felt like, no way, man. Like, I'll take a maternity leave and I'm going to go back to work. Like, I
Right.
don't want to stay
Yes.
home with this baby. And I was like, great, good for you. I just feel like it's
Mhm.
such a personal decision. And
Absolutely.
you kind of just have to go with what works with where
Yeah.
you are.
Yeah. I totally agree because I'm in the boat of like I just needed to be home with my kids. I didn't have the privilege of staying home with my first. Like I did
Hmm.
work. I was able to leave my career when my youngest was I think 2. Um
Hmm.
but that was a challenge to like have to go to work every day when I felt like I don't want to be here. I want to be with my kids, but I have other friends who are
Yeah.
like I cannot be home all day. Like that is not for me. I need my career and
Yes.
it's like that's awesome that we have those options.
And there were times that I remember thinking like, man, I wish I were at a job right now because
Mhm.
I wish I had like a nanny doing these things that there's a lot of menial work, especially in
Mhm.
those baby days. Like I was picking up Cheerios off the floor and thinking like, I'm
Is
kind of
this my
like,
life?
yeah, like I'm kind of highly educated to be picking Cheerios off the
Like, I
floor. Like,
remember when I used to, like, dress up every day and look
Yeah.
normal. And this is,
And
yeah.
do things that people said, "Hey, great job," or at least something, some response for what I'm doing, not
Yes.
but I kept reminding myself, like, I mean, I'm choosing this. Like, no one's forcing me to do this. And my husband would
Mhm.
always check in and say, like, "Time to reevaluate," all the time. Like, there was no one making me do this. And
Mhm.
I had a really telling point when my kids were like 3 and 5. So then I had a second baby 2 years later, two girls.
Mhm.
And, again, all these times my husband being like, "How is this feeling? How is this feeling?" And I'm like, this is what I want." And this kind of dream job just totally came to me. I mean, I was not looking for anything. I had not created a resume. And through a friend, this guy, he was an Academy Award winning producer. He was making a film near where I live, which is like 5 hours from LA. So there's not a lot of documentary film work where we are. It's mostly in LA and New York. And he was like, "I'm looking for like an associate producer, director person. Do you want a job?" Like, it was kind of like if I had created a dream job, it was like on a platter. And I I just thought, well, first I told him, "I don't have any childcare. Like, I can't do this. I can't just leave
Mhm.
my youngest kids in school like 4 hours a week.
Yeah.
There's like no." And he said, "Okay, you could do it part-time, like 20 hours a week." And I thought, 20
I
hours a
still can't do that.
20 hours a week? Like, what am I gonna do with my kids? And then I remember I went to Costco right after a couple times meeting with him, and I ran into this woman I barely knew from preschool, and she's now one of my closest friends. And I saw her in like the frozen food section, and she's like, "How are you?" And I started crying. And she's like,
Aw.
I met with this guy and it's like this dream job. And I said, I I don't think I'm ready. I don't think I'm ready. And she was like, "Okay, maybe you're not ready." But
Yeah.
I still think of that thing. And I talked to him and he was amazing. He was wonderful. He was like, I have kids and they were little ones and I get it. But I thought that
Mhm.
whole experience was kind of perfect because it made me re-choose my life. Because it again, if you had like created a job that looked on paper perfect, like at this point, if you gave me that job, I'd be like,
Take
"Yes,
it. Yeah,
great."
I can do it.
But it didn't, it's not what I needed at that
Yeah.
time. And
Yeah.
so I was doubling down on what I already had, which is when the days got hard, which they were hard plenty. I mean, with the little
Mhm.
kids, but I was like, I chose this life. So
Yeah.
I think sometimes no matter what we're doing, working inside the home, outside the home, whatever we're doing, we have to remind ourselves, if we have the option of having a choice,
Mhm.
like this is what we're choosing to do. And nothing is perfect. Nothing has great days every second of the day. And there's ups and downs and you kind of roll with them. And then
Right.
sometimes if you have the, option, you pivot. And so uh anyway, that's kind of what I've done throughout, is just tried to check in and say, what's working right now?
Right. Right. So what were some of the perks of being a stay-at-home mom, and what were some of the challenges?
For me,
I
I
mean, we
think
can
the
think of a lot of
perks,
challenges.
yeah, yeah, let's start.
But when you look at, like, a lot of people are like, "What's harder, being a working mom or a stay-at-home mom?" It's like, they're both hard, and there
Yeah,
are great things about both. So from a
yeah.
stay-at-home mom perspective, what did you like about it, and what was hard?
I think what I really like about it is, I think of so much life happens kind of like in the little moments. And so my life now, my work now is still very flexible. Like, I don't go into an office and I don't travel a lot. And so I'm still very available to my kids.
Mhm.
And what I like, and that's on purpose, because the teenage years, even though they're very busy, your kids,
They still need
my
you.
opinion, they still really need you a lot.
Mhm.
And so I love being connected to my kids, and I love being, you know, available to them emotionally and everything. And so I find that those just little moments of being there, you can't really schedule them. And so if I were, you know, away a lot or only seeing them, for bedtime or something, or I wouldn't get the little gems. It's kind of like you take the good with the bad. Like when you're a
Mhm.
stay-at-home mom and you're with them all the time, like you're taking all the
Oh,
tantrums or the
that's so
hard
true.
things, but then you're also getting those little gems that come
Mhm.
in between. And so, like, I just feel like I was able to create all these little magic moments and bonds as well as the frustrating times. And I just love being part of a community too. And so I was really involved with our elementary school, which is like 4 blocks away from where we live. And so, I was at every drop off and pickup and got to
Yeah.
know all the other parents and just walking and biking to school. Like I have such happy memories of our whole community just
Yeah.
through elementary school. And that kind of dissipates when they go to middle school and certainly high school.
Oh,
Like you just don't get to
you're
see
not a part
everybody
of
as
it as
much.
much. Yeah.
Yeah. And so to have gotten to be there and, volunteering for all those things and working in the library and being a class parent and
Yep.
during the harvest carnival and, doing all those things, like at the time, like it's work, like it takes
Yeah.
your time and everything. But I just feel now like what an honor to have gotten to be there
Right.
because, like I said at the top, like now I look back, like, it does go kind of fast, like, they're only little once, and, of
Mhm.
course, they're gonna be your kids forever, and you're gonna continue to have relationships, but, when I look back at those pictures of when they were, like, 6 and 8 years old and all that, like, they were so cute, they were so
I
sweet,
know. I
and
don't
they
remember
don't.
the tantrums and the talking
Yeah.
back. No, of course not. I know I'm super excited because
Oh,
now having my youngest in school, I can finally I I can volunteer at the school without feeling like I have to get a babysitter for the younger one or it doesn't work. So
right.
I've already signed up to like help with the art lessons. I'm like, oh, it's gonna be so fun.
Totally.
But then it
Yeah.
also reminds me, like, I'm glad I'm not a classroom teacher anymore. 'Cause
Oh
it's
my
so much.
gosh,
It's
what a
so much.
job. I mean,
Oh my
so much
gosh.
respect to the classroom teachers. What a
Yes.
job.
Yes, but also the fact
Right.
that, like, now I can help, I can, like, be a part of this. I'm so excited about that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I think that that's it too, and just I don't know why this comes to me. I love to cook. I mean, well, I went to cooking school, and so just things like that. Like I love making dinner every night and just having time. We have family dinner and um just that sort of thing of being together and having that time to I don't know, make good meals and
Mhm.
be there together with that. Like it's nicer to me than like now that my kids are in high school, they'll talk about like, oh, so and so, yeah, their parents bring takeout in every night. Okay, that's fine. I mean, I'm not judging it, but like that's just not me. And I think
Mhm.
it just wouldn't suit me to live a life like that. Like it's just not who I am. And so if somehow I had chosen or a life that was like so busy that I was at work all day that
Mhm.
every night I was like bringing in takeout food. I think it just wouldn't feel aligned with really who I am.
Yeah.
So I guess that's why I just kind of get back to just
Yeah.
if you are able to have the choice to just kind of check in with who you are. That said, I mean there are hard parts of it too. I mean not only just dealing with the kids tantrums, but yeah, I've given up a lot too. I mean, I look at the people who have worked through these years
Yes.
and I am jealous of a lot. Like I look at some of my like college classmates and what they've achieved, like the things that they have done. And I think, wow, like I think I could have been someone or done something like that
Yes.
they have worked and gotten themselves through all of these years of working. It is so impressive and I really admire it and I do feel envy. I mean, I'll be very blunt
Mhm.
about it. Like I feel like, wow, what have I done? Like what mark have I left on the world as
Right.
I've been whatever grocery shopping and doing dishes and
Yes.
volunteering in the art classroom.
Yes.
And
Oh,
of
I'm
course.
loving that you are bringing that up because I feel like that is such like, that's something I'm struggling with a lot when I was a teacher for 17 years. So when people said, "Oh, what do you do?" "Oh, I'm a teacher." But now when people ask me, I'm kind of like, um, well, I used to teach. I don't know how to answer the question anymore. Like I used to teach and now choosing to stay home with my kids. And then I have a podcast. I'm trying to, but I like to, I'm I don't know how
Oh
to
my
answer
gosh.
that question
So
anymore.
that is one
Like
of
my identity's
I
gone.
hate that. Yeah. Oh, I hate that that's a question, especially it's sort of like whatever the cocktail party question, but it's anywhere. It's on
Mhm.
the playground. It's anyone you talk to and they're like, what do you do? Why
Mhm.
is that the question? Why isn't it
Yeah.
like who are you? Like what excites you? Like
Yeah. What are your
what books do you like to
passions? What are
read?
your
What do you
hobbies?
yeah. But it's
Mhm.
always like what do you do? And it's like, what do you mean? Am I defined by like if I
My
get a
job.
paycheck or not?
Right.
And and so I feel like that is so intimidating and it makes people who do stay at home or maybe what if there are the people who haven't had the opportunities and maybe haven't had the path to get a certain education and so are working a job that maybe they're not as proud of. So
Yeah.
they can't say I'm a teacher or I'm a lawyer or whatever. So then what are they supposed to say? Like I just think it's a
Right.
terrible question.
Yes.
And anyway, and so for those of us who, when I'm staying at home with my kids, I mean, I have a really good friend who has 8 kids and she's the most incredible person and mom and she seriously could run a major corporation not just because she has 8 kids, but the way that she's just so
Yeah.
smart. Some of the
Yeah.
smartest people I know are stay-at-home parents, by the way. And she has been so dismissed at some of her husband is a high executive at a very well-known tech firm, and she'll go to these dinners and parties and stuff. And some people are so snobby. And by the way, some of the snobbiest people are women, are working
Yeah.
women who
Yeah.
will ask, they're like, what do you do? And she's like, oh, well, I raise my children to be like valuable citizens in the world and all that. And they'll be like, oh,
Oh.
well,
Mm.
couldn't you? This one woman said to her, um, couldn't you just hire people to drive them and cook for them instead? And my friend was like, I do a
I
lot
want
more
to
than
do that.
just drive them around. I'm having conversations with them and
Mhm.
I'm imparting values to them. And I'm just like, why am I having to defend myself to this person?
Yes.
Why does she not understand these
Ah,
things?
that's how I feel. I almost feel like I have to, yeah, defend it. Like if someone says, "What do you do?" "Oh, I'm a mom." And then I have to like say, "But it's a lot of work and like, I'm doing this and I want to be the one picking them up for school. I want them to feel like safe at home knowing when they get call I got a call from school, "Hey, Jet's not feeling well. I will be there in 10 minutes." And as opposed to
Yeah.
like, "Let me see if I can get someone to cover my shift and do this." Like I hate that I have to justify that.
It's a complete institutional problem because it's also the childcare workers are also not they're not getting paid enough, so they're not respected too. Like the
Mhm.
moms or the parents who are caring for their kids aren't respected enough, as are the people who are, caring for the kids. If they're not your parent, they are also, getting way underpaid for like the whole
Mhm.
work of caring for kids is completely undervalued in our
Yeah.
society.
Yeah.
So, I mean, what's more important than our kids?
Right.
Like
Yeah.
how they are treated, how they are educated, how they're loved and
How
cared
they
for.
feel, yes.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
so I just feel like, it's kind of like given lip service all the time, like, oh yeah, the next generation. And then we don't even have like universal childcare or anything, which just
Mhm.
so it really upsets me clearly.
Yeah. Okay,
But
this question I did not have prepared, but I'm
yeah.
curious now that we're talking about, like, the sensitive subjects.
Yeah.
How did it feel going from making money to now you're a stay-at-home mom and it's I 'cause the minute I met my husband, I pretty much had my teaching job. And so I was always like, we had separate accounts. We did this. And then when I left my teaching job, I mean, we discussed finances, like, we were okay, but it was so hard now going like I used to spend money and like he didn't need to
Yeah.
know like I bought a new shirt and new jeans and
Right,
stuff. And now
right.
I'm kind of like, it's kind of uncomfortable for me to not say I've got my full salary coming in each month.
Yeah. I think that's such a valid thing too. That I mean, it's something that obviously, couples need to discuss. I think it feels really terrible to feel like you're not being valued for your work and that
Or like the amount of money I make is what I'm value. Like I feel like I'm doing
yes.
more not being in the classroom, not teaching and like
Yes.
honing in on these boys, but there's no paycheck that shows that? So it's
I
like why
know.
should my salary show my value?
I so hear you. And then I mean, jumping ahead to like now going trying to, start
Mhm.
a business, like I have a podcast like you, and it's really hard to get it up and running. And I
Yes.
feel
Yeah.
like I feel like I'm so much more valuable than the money coming in,
Yes.
or
Yeah.
the lack of money
Absolutely.
coming in. And so you're putting in all of this work as you are
Mhm.
as a stay-at-home mom, but you're not being valued for it. And then people are getting paid for these ridiculous jobs or whatever. So I just feel
Yeah.
like how money is used to compensate someone's worth
Mhm.
is such a funny barometer in this world,
Yeah.
and then for me also how I feel about it. And so it's been an interesting journey for me too, because I feel like this isn't fair, like it's not fair. Like I'm working so
It's so
hard
but I
and I,
love that I'm doing this. It's like
yes.
I didn't love my job before.
Mm,
I'm putting in more time, more effort. I love it, but then there's no paycheck really.
yes. Yes, and so I guess that's a similar to, like, being
Mhm.
a mom. I mean, being a mom, like, like, again, like we said, what's more important than your kids? And you
Yeah.
love your kids so much, and you know that there's such value in that, and you see it every day,
Yes.
and you know that it's hard. You don't need a paycheck for that because the dividends are just gonna pay off for your whole life.
Right.
It'd be amazing if there was some sort of paycheck.
Wouldn't
Can you
that be great? I
imagine?
mean, we'd be millionaires.
I mean, sometimes I would joke to my husband, I'd be like, "So, if you did hire a chef and a chauffeur
This
and
is
a
what it would cost
cleaner."
you.
Yeah, you could. I could be getting quite a hefty paycheck.
Absolutely. Yes, totally. Okay, so what made you make the switch then to going back into it?
So, I did a lot of volunteer work when I was a stay-at-home mom, and I really loved it for a long time. Like I think it's like when my kids were both like really in the heart of elementary school, and it was just really satisfying and so fun to be super involved. And then maybe it's around, well, so COVID hit when my kids were in 5th and 7th grade.
Okay.
So my youngest was just about to exit elementary school. And some friends and I decided for that year of COVID when schools were basically shut,
Mhm.
we pulled our kids out of school and we created our own backyard pod school. Since we live in
Oh,
California, we
cool.
can do that. And we hired like teachers. And so we had sixth graders and six eighth graders. And we were basically like school administrators. And
That
it
is
was
awesome.
a ton of work. Like we only did it for the kids. Like I had
Mhm.
wanted to kind of start a podcast then, but um, we just knew it would be better for the kids. But so that kind of COVID, of course, delayed everything. But so leading kind of before that, as my kids were exiting elementary school, I had started to kind of not sour on volunteering. Like I still volunteer like in the community, but it had changed from me leaning into it and loving it to people expecting things of me. Like, oh,
Mhm.
Elizabeth will do it. She does everything. She can just do it. And me feeling like, am I just being kind of squeezed dry here?
Mhm.
Like, because they know I'm capable and I'll do stuff? Or am I, what about me and my talents? Like,
Yeah.
am I even doing stuff that I'm good at anymore? Or am I just doing it
Doing
because
it to
I'm
do it.
like,
Yeah.
I'm a warm body or something? And so I started to think like, well, I don't want to be kind of a resentful like volunteer. Like,
Mhm.
where can I actually add value? And so I started to think like, well, maybe I want to kind of get involved with stuff that I'm actually really, um, I don't know, feel more passionate about. And so I'd had the idea, like, where can I use my talents and interests from the past? Then COVID hit, but I started thinking maybe a podcast, just because I'm not going to like move to LA or New York and work in TV or
Yeah.
film again. And maybe I can use my interviewing skills and my storytelling skills and stuff, maybe in a podcast, but it all kind of got delayed. So I think that that was sort of the genesis of it, is like, I want to get involved with something, but I need to sort of pivot and create my own thing a little bit. But I don't want to just try to full bore, like just go take a job, an office job somewhere, for the sake of it. Like I still
Mhm.
want to kind of be flexible and be around with my kids some, but also people had told me a lot, like, these middle school and high school years, it goes starts going faster and faster, which
Yes.
oddly is true. I'm not
Yes.
sure why time
I've
does
already been
that.
hearing that. Yeah.
And you don't want to suddenly have your kids, like, be late high school years and just be so wrapped up in their lives, and then they're, like, leave the nest, and
You're
these
not there.
moms who feel like, "Well, what do I have nothing now because all I do is care for my kids."
Yes.
So,
Yes. My
that was
husband says that a lot because when I first talked about leaving the job, he's like, I don't know if I want you to not have a job. I want you to have something that's not just kids. And I think that does happen. Like if you're so invested in your kids and then they leave, it's like, well, now what? What do I do?
yeah.
But I was like, it doesn't
Well,
have to
I
be my
think
job. It doesn't have to be my job though.
no, there's
Because
so
also,
many,
like, how
like,
different would that be if you were totally there for your kids and then you took a job and you were like, "I'm not there at all." Like, how do they adjust to that? Was that hard for them to get used to, like, "Oh, wait, mom's working now and I can't just
well,
barge in?"
yeah, it actually was really funny because I was really trying to ramp up, and for a while I was putting my podcast out weekly, and just, you have to do so much on your own,
It is so much.
and
I don't think
it's a
people
lot.
realize there's
No,
so much just
people
for those
think,
few downloads, like, "Oh, how many downloads this week?"
gosh,
It's
and I
like
think people think you just sort of talk to someone, hit record, and then it's out in the world. And
Yes.
there's so much that goes
Yes.
on to putting a
Yes.
podcast out and trying to market it and even find guests and
Yes. Yes,
research and
yes.
edit. And there's a lot.
You're speaking
And
my language.
yeah, like, that's a whole other episode. And so I was like, I'm gonna do, weekly episodes to get all this out. And I was talking to this kind of mentor of mine, and he said, you need support at home. Like, what you need to do is offload some of the low-hanging fruit that
Mm.
someone else can do. And so I talked to my husband. He was like, okay, well, so we'll hire someone who can do like the laundry and the cooking and the driving the kids around and stuff. And I was like, okay. And my kids were, like, so upset about it. It
Like,
was
such a shock for them.
a shock, and they rebelled, and this poor lady did not last that long. My daughter was like, "I don't want someone touching my underwear who's not you." And I'm like, "Well, you can,
Hold it
fold your
yourself.
own clothes." And then this poor Julie was like, picking her up from school and driving her to her lesson or whatever. And my daughter, she's a nice kid, but she was like, "It was so awkward, mom. I didn't know what to talk to her about." And then I would like have all the ingredients ready for the food. And it was hard for me just because like she was really slow, like chopping stuff and everything. It was just really, it was hard for all of us to
Yes.
just, because we don't have someone in our house usually,
Yeah.
and so, and then she actually had a personal issue and she had to go. And then my husband's like, let's not hire somebody else. So I'm like, okay, it's back
Let's
on
do something
me.
else.
But it's all on me. So the funny thing is, it's like, even though I'm taking on something else, I'm still doing
Mhm.
most of the home stuff
Yeah.
still. I mean, my husband, tries to help a little bit more, but I do feel like it's what women talk about, like women with the double shift, like
Yes.
they still do a lot of the extra stuff.
Right.
Um,
Well, yeah, I was talking to my friend about that a little because they call it now default parenting. Like, all the things get put on the default parent. Like,
oh, yes,
signing up for
yes.
school, doctor's appointments, doing all that, like, grocery shopping, that. Um, and I have such mixed feelings about this because it's like, yes, I do feel like when I was working, I'm like, if I had a meeting on this day and then that day, I was responsible for finding childcare. But then you're
Yeah.
like, but we're both the parents, like, but I also took that on and didn't really ask for help. It was just like, I have to do this and I have to do that. And I'm like, you know what? If I told my husband, I've got a meeting that day and I need you to help me figure out childcare, he would totally do it. I just never really asked because it was like, nope, this is my job. This is what I'm supposed to do. So I don't know, I have mixed feelings
I
about that.
find this is such a, like, a rich, fertile topic also,
Hmm.
and I don't know if it's generational because 'cause you're younger than me, and then I have a niece who's 26.
Okay.
She's getting married next year, and I wonder, like, how's it gonna be for her and her husband? Because they are, like, her husband does more cooking than she does, her fiance. And I don't know how when they have kids, how it's gonna be, but, like, I thought my husband and I were more whatever, less traditional than my parents,
Mhm.
but I don't know how if it's really changing that much
I'm
because
not yeah, I'm not sure. I know there was a mom who taught with me and her kids were a little bit older. So when I was about to have mine, we were talking about like baby carriers and stuff. And I was like, "Oh, my husband's like he said this is a really good one." And she's like, "The dads don't wear those. The moms wear them." But I'm like, "No, but like in my group of friends, like the dads were very involved, like pretty hands-on." And then I see some of my younger cousins who are just now having kids and the male cousins, I'm very proud of them, super hands-on. So I feel like it is shifting a little bit from like my parents' generation, but it still is that like we still need to ask for help, which is still hard.
yeah, and I don't know how much of it is biological, like, just from
Yeah.
from the beginning, like,
Yeah.
"Give me the baby, I need to breastfeed," like,
Yep.
"I will take care of it,"
I'm a
and
giver. I'm a carer. I care for yeah.
yes, and then it just extends to, like you said, like, "I'll make the appointments for the baby, I'll take care
Mhm.
of this, I will." Whereas he could naturally default to be the one who's looking. I mean, I was always the one who was making sure there would be enough diapers in the house. There was a birthday present available
Mhm.
for the party next weekend. I'm always thinking ahead that
Yeah.
there was supplies, things, plans made,
Mhm.
and he's not ever doing that. Now, maybe if I just disappeared, he would have to do that,
Right.
but I'm always taking care of it, so he never
Needed
really
to.
has to. I mean,
Yeah.
of course, I'll go away for a weekend or something like that, and he'll keep the fires running, but it's not, he's never has to do it like long term, but I don't know if that is because I never really made him do
Right.
it.
Right. It'll be
But
interesting. I think someone should study the next generation of dads and
yeah,
yeah.
because I do think it's a lot. So I talk about this with my friends, and women are like really burdened by it. I think a lot of my friends just feel like whether they have paying jobs outside the home or not, they're just like, it is
So
so much.
much.
Even when by the time the kids are teenagers. I mean, we're still the ones toward the beginning of the year. All the moms I know are like, the school forms. I mean, you have to get the physicals for sports, and the
Yes.
moms
Oh
are
my
like
gosh, yes.
running around like crazy doing them all, and they're like, "My husband doesn't even know all the stuff I'm doing.
Yeah.
Every year I'm doing all the stuff, and
Yes.
he's just doing his job, and I'm doing my job and all the kids' stuff."
Mhm. Yeah.
So, but again, maybe we don't ask.
Yeah. I don't know. Interesting. It's an interesting topic because
Yeah,
I've seen like multiple posts lately about default parenting and I'm like, "Huh, this is something we need to look into,
yeah,
do more."
default.
Okay, so tell us a little bit more about like your business, your podcast, and what it was like starting that like midlife. Because I like to like toot my own horn a little bit because it was in my 40s that I created a website, started a podcast, and I like to tell like my kids like your mom did that. Like your mom has a YouTube channel, kids. Like be impressed because that it's not easy and like that's not something I went to school for. So
Yeah.
what was your journey like?
Well, first of all, I like that you're tooting your own horn. That is so good. I'm always telling my friends, like, yes, do that and ask for like back to the money thing. I'm like, ask for how much money, ask for what you're worth. Like, that's what we need
Yes.
to do as women. Like, yes,
Yes.
hear each other on. Um, the answer is super challenging. I think I got into this knowing knowing what I knew, but I didn't know everything I didn't know. And so
Yeah.
I kind of thought like, "Oh, podcasting, that's something I could do because of my background." And then I took a course at Stanford Extension, like continuing ed, a Zoom
Okay.
course,
Yeah.
and I was like, "Okay, I'll learn the stuff that I don't know." I was like, "Okay, I'll learn this and this and this." And then as I started doing it, I was like, "Oh my gosh, there's like way more that I don't know how to do." And I started to get really overwhelmed by I think I thought it would be a lot easier to grow it faster than it
Yeah.
has been
Yeah.
because I was like, "Oh, I know how to do this and I'll just kind of post it and I'll talk to people and they'll tell their friends and everyone I know
Mhm.
will listen." Like they don't, you know, like,
Mhm.
honestly, like, initially, my friend people would be like, "Oh, yeah, that's great," but people are busy and
Right.
they not
And there's
everybody.
millions of podcasts.
Yeah,
I was
and
like,
not
"How do they
everyone I
find
know.
mine?"
Yeah, they're not all just gonna be like, "Everyone listen to my friend Elizabeth's podcast every week and go."
Mhm.
And so it's really been, like, that's hard, and then I realized, like, I'm not a business person, I'm a creative person, and a large part of this, like, it's starting a business,
Yeah.
and that is way outside my wheelhouse, and so there are times it's like, "Oh, I don't know, I just wanna lean into the fun stuff." Like, I just
Uh-huh.
wanna interview people, talk to people, create the product. I don't wanna do all the, marketing and
Yep.
and I'm not that good with social media, and I've had to learn all that stuff. So there are times too that I've had to think about like, oh, let me, see it as an interesting challenge rather than like, oh, how am I going to do this? Because
Mhm.
it sometimes it does feel like just a just a insurmountable mountain. Like
Right.
you just think you're learning this and then oh, then there's that. Also, I think the other hard thing is there's no like, just direct playbook that you should follow. Like, do this step, do that step, do that step, and then the other, and you'll be a
And then boom,
success.
you're a
It's
huge
like,
success and you can get sponsors.
yes, there's like infinite different paths you can go
Right.
down, and you can try that one and that won't work, and then you might try that one or mix it with that one. And so I think that's the other hard thing is that there's like give it a shot. Maybe
Yes.
this will work. Do your thing.
Yeah.
And then everyone goes, just be yourself. It's like, okay, be myself. And if I be myself, I wouldn't even do the business stuff.
Do you ever feel like too, because this is like a solo thing, like I
Mm,
work at home. I do you ever feel like I miss the collaboration of coworkers. And here it's like, it's
totally.
me. And I'm like, I like one day I was like, I wish someone could just look at this video and tell me if I look crazy or give me some ideas. Like it'd be so helpful to have
So
people to bounce
much.
ideas off of.
We should start a little collective
We
because
should.
I say that all the time because
Yes.
I will say like I get so lonely. Like
Mhm.
I I mean I'm not like the biggest extrovert in the world, but I'm not an introvert. I'm kind of like right in the
Same.
middle. And there will be
Yeah.
times I'm like I just like I gotta take the dog for a walk and just go see people. Because again, like I don't do school pickups anymore. I mean, my older daughter drives. Like she
Mm.
drives them home from school.
Like,
Like
are you
I don't
sure you
even
don't want
get
me to
to
get
see.
you?
I know. Like, what can I do? Like there's a basketball game today. Yay, I get to go see people.
Yeah.
But like it just feels like it's very solo work. And I wish I could work. I wish there was like a podcast collaborative studio somewhere nearby and everyone was
Yeah.
working on their individual podcast, but I could go into work and see them every day.
Yeah, or, like, just go
'Cause
into work, like, go sometimes
yes.
I just go to a coffee shop just so I take my work elsewhere, so it's not like I'm
Yeah.
distracted by things at home, like, "Oh, I was supposed to empty the dishwasher, let me go do that," and just to see
Yeah.
other people and just feel like, "Yes, I am working on my business right now."
Yeah. That's I mean, so I think that it is one of the hardest things is how solo it is. And that's why the interviewing part is really fun. Like when you
Mhm,
get to talk to new people and I find everybody I talk to so fascinating. Like
mhm.
and that's the most fun because I'm like connecting with someone.
Yeah,
and, and the rest
yeah.
of it is kind of a lot. And then I also really want to write. Like I just a lot of stuff that I love writing. And then I'm like, yeah, but that's also solo. Like,
Yeah.
why do I
You
like
know,
such
that's so
solo?
funny, as we've been talking, I was like, "I wonder if she'll ever write a book. Because I bet you would be good at
Oh,
writing a
thank
book.
you.
You'd have
Yeah,
interesting things.
I have a lot. I used to keep a daily journal, like in all the time that I've like lived in LA, and I have like really some crazy stories from like broadcast journalism and stuff. And if I went back and read them, it could be I could write a pretty interesting book. But then I think, I don't know, I kind of want to be around people too. But I guess I could do it in a cafe.
Right, right. That definitely helps. Oh gosh, this has been such a fun conversation. I feel like I've gotten
Oh yeah,
so much off my
fun
chest
for
a
me
little bit.
too. Yeah.
Yeah. Why don't you tell us, the name of your podcast so we can all go and listen to help your downloads,
Oh,
and where
thank
we
you.
can find you and any of that.
Thank you. Well, it's called What It's Like To. And so I interview people who do kind of interesting, unique things that most of us won't do or haven't done in our lives. So, like what it's like to summit Mount Everest, or what it's like to go to the Academy Awards, or So it's kind of like what it's like
That's so
to walk
fun.
in someone else's shoes. So you can find it, wherever, or
Yeah.
what it's like to.net. I've been kind of on a break because we had a kind of a family situation. But but there's a bunch of old episodes, and I'm gonna put out some new ones coming out soon. So
Awesome. Oh, well, this was
yeah,
so great talking to you. I really enjoyed it.
thank you. Me too. Really, really fun conversation with you, Katie.
Yes. Thank you. Okay, a big thank you to Elizabeth for coming on the podcast. I really hope if you are a stay at home mom, you kind of felt some connection to what we are going through. If you are a working mom, oh gosh, our hearts go out to you. Nothing is easy about being a mom. Whether you're working at home, working from home, staying at home with the kids, we're all in this journey together. So if there's anything that I can do to support you moms, please reach out to me and let me know. You can follow me on Instagram, subscribe to my YouTube channel, send me a DM, send me an email. My email's down below. Would just love to connect with you all. So until next week, I want to remind you that everyone burns their first pancake, so just keep flipping.